Hi, everyone. My name is Blake Whitcomb. I'm the Sports Science Business Development Manager for IMeasureU here in North America. And today we're going to talk about using our system IMU-Step and our inertial sensors to measure different surface types and different surface type hardness for your athletes that are either in a rehab scenario or just wanting to understand how different surface types may change the lower limb impact exposure for those athletes. So this data set we're going to talk about is basically a plyometric session. And for this plyometric session, we basically did repeated rebound plyo hops. For these sets, we did them on field turf, jumping 1 yard each time and trying to do a quick rebound for 20 total reps. It was then repeated by going over to the track surface and doing the same repetitions for a yard distance. Now, once we upload that data set, the first thing we're going to look at is the total impact from the session. So for this specific session that was just 3 minutes in total work, we had a limited number of impacts and only 24 of them reached the high intensity. But in that session, we had a total impact load of 2,500, and that was split into left and right limb here. So quickly, I know that my symmetry of loading was symmetrical in general, but when we want to dive deeper into right versus left, as well as the individual tasks, we can then use this session asymmetry graph and our specific footnotes, which is our tagging feature around the activities that we did. So for our first task, we can see that we had a impact load score of 400, and this is for our plyos on the field turf. So when I click on that, it's going to give me every impact left versus right for the total session, or excuse me, for the total footnote. And then the highest we reached was 16G, but on average, we kind of sat in the 17 to 15 intensity. Now, when we went to the track, we can see there was a pretty drastic increase in our intensity on the impacts, right and left. And that led us to have an impact load score of 700. Now, to ensure that this isn't just an anomaly of one set being tested, we repeated the exact same set, and we can see that on the turf, again, we got the same impact load score, and in general, we're in the same ranges, although we did have a little higher 18 and 19 intensity on one of the impacts. And when we go back to the track again, we're going to see, again, we really reached much higher intensities and a slightly higher impact load score. So for this specific task, we were doing rebounds that had very limited knee and hip flexion. One of the things that we know from counter movement jump testing on force plates and aggregate data that's out there in the literature is that athletes will have different strategies for accomplishing the same task. And one of those potential strategies is that in your eccentric and concentric phase, there's more of a kind of absorption of that impact. So by limiting the hip and knee flexion in this specific drill, it's allowing us to focus more on the actual ground surface. If you were to do something like counter movement jumps for repetition, the individual may have different strategies for how to accomplish that. And so it'd probably be best to test the surface type with that specific athlete. So if you have a rehabbing athlete, you can have them start these tasks on very soft surfaces and see how they're transitioning as you're progressing them towards more hard surfaces or more specific to their sport. For example, a tennis court being much harder than some indoor soft surfaces or grass. So just a quick example of a way that you could use the system to test this. We have a lot of customers that are looking at different fields that they practice on, and then specifically in the rehab space, understanding how progressing them from different hardnesses would affect their rehab. A sport that does this really well would be gymnastics. They have many different types of surfaces that they practice on and rebound off of. So thanks for taking a look at this. If you'd like to get in touch with us, there's a get in touch button on our website, and we can talk through this with your specific use cases. One quick thing I forgot to mention here is that you can export your summary of that collection. What this will allow you to do is really break down the exact impact totals by intensity bin, but also by those footnotes. So as we can see, we have our 4 footnotes here. This is probably best used for people that are really trying to do some post-analysis and or visualization around those different surface types over time.